Hello, this is Peter Birdsall with Education Advocates. Sandra Morales and I provide the state budget and legislative updates. Today's update is going to be about the 2022-23 state budget, which was approved by the legislature last night. We're doing this update on June 30th, so it was done last night, June 29th. The governor and legislative leadership have announced an agreement on the budget, so we are expecting that it will be signed without very many changes and in place by tomorrow, July 1. On this slide, you see the email addresses for both me and Sandra if you have copies, because during this presentation, we'll only be able to highlight some of the key issues and perspectives. The most dramatic news in the budget from a K-12 education perspective is just the extraordinary increase in ongoing funding. These are increases to LCFF, the local control funding formula. It's a 6.56% COLA, cost of living adjustment, plus an additional 6.28% increase, plus some adjustments that were made to accommodate declining enrollment problems the districts are having. The value of those, I mean, we talk in billions all the time now. Those are the value of those adjustments to $2.8 billion. So there's a lot of ongoing money in the funding formula for schools. This isn't a school finance workshop, so I won't go into more detail on that, but I do want to reference the link to collective bargaining because I think it would be a mistake to deal with these issues in isolation. There's other language we'll come to later that talks about increasing the school year instructional time. Obviously, those are bargaining issues. There's a lot of money in here that could be used for professional development, but we hear from districts up and down the state the challenge they face providing professional development when they don't have enough substitutes. Well, obviously, one potential solution is to do some of the professional development on days when students are not in school, and that also is a bargaining issue. So looking at all those issues in combination, I think is important for districts as they start to implement the new budget. The other major, or there are a couple, the biggest of the other major ongoing initiatives is the commitment to expanded learning opportunity programs, ELOP. We've discussed this before, so hopefully everybody's familiar if you offer TK, transitional kindergarten through grade 6, about this new program, which basically requires a 9-hour day combined instructional day and after school, before school. The key thing we want to highlight here is there is a distinction in the budget that's really important to track, which is whether the district, your district, or the districts you support have 75% or more of their students are unduplicated students. If that distinction between 75% or more, or all districts less 75%, has dramatic impact both on the funding and on the requirements for the bill. For those of 75% or more, they're funded at $2,750 per unduplicated student. Again, so this is ongoing money, so it will be, every year plus COLA, so you can bank on that. And the requirement is that starting in 23-24, you must offer that expanded program to all students in kindergarten, transitional kindergarten through grade 6. In comparison, if a district has fewer than 75% unduplicated students, legislation does not stipulate the funding rate. That we put TBD, to be determined, a little bit flipped there, but basically they get to divide up the money that's left. Our estimate is that'll be between $1,500 and $2,000 per unduplicated student. So it's a lower number, and you can't, it's easy to plan the budget when you don't know the exact number. Again, this is funding per unduplicated students. So if you only have a few, then your overall budget is not going to be very large. But the mandate is very different. The requirement is that starting in 23-24, you must offer to all your unduplicated students in TK through 6. So I just think it's really important as you work with your districts that you're very conscious of the distinction both on the funding level and the requirements as to whether or not this is a district that meets that threshold. A new element in this budget that was not in the governor's proposal and really, frankly, didn't get a lot of discussion in the legislative process is a significant change to school transportation funding. It really has gotten virtually no new funding in well over a decade. And now they've changed the formula, so the state says it will pay 60% of the cost of school transportation. But going along with that is a link. We tied this to the ELOP program because it does require that districts now develop, if you have TK through 6, you have to develop a plan by April, or I guess all districts get money would have to develop this plan by April 1st, 2023. And for those of you that operate TK through 6, in that plan, you have to address how to prioritize planned transportation services for students TK through 6. So that is both a new resource, but also a new requirement that we want to make sure we highlight it. Now we switch to one-time money. Both the ELOP program, or the ELOP program, the transportation money, and the LCFF money is all ongoing. This is a large one-time block grant, 7.936 billion. If I can bold my narrative, it would be billion. It's a lot of money that you can expend through 27, 28. Our estimate is that's this is, as you see, allocated per unduplicated student. Our estimate is that's going to come out to about $2,200 per unduplicated student. And then you can use it for a series of programs. And again, we'll send out a written update next week. We'll have the link so you can see the precise language, but basically they are supports and services that deal with instructional learning time, learning support services, pupil supports, counseling, things like that, support with credit deficient students are deficient credits, and then very broad additional academic services. So within that sort of constellation of student services and supports, there's a lot of flexibility in how you use that money. It is a lot of money, again, $2,200 per unduplicated student, and you have the good news, you don't have to spend it right away, but you have to develop a plan for that, obviously. A separate one-time block grant is the art, music, instructional materials, and discretionary block grant. If I could bold my narrative here, I would bold discretionary, because the lead on this is arts, music, instructional materials. We think that makes a lot of sense in terms of allocating it for those purposes. But as you'll see, there is a lot more discretion in how districts use that money. It's $3.56 billion allocated per pupil, not per unduplicated student. So you need to be very conscious as you do your budget estimates. It's available for expenditure through 25-26. And it's professional development, instructional materials, improving school climate, so things like restorative justice, et cetera, purchasing books and libraries. And then now we get to the discretionary part. Other operational costs. If you couldn't drive a truck through that, that's like wide open. And COVID-related costs. So I think the intent of the legislature was respond to a number of bills that were focused on the issue of instructional materials, the school climate, and the governor's proposal on school libraries. So they wanted to highlight that, but the fact is there is a lot of discretion in local districts and how you use that. Again, those also are one-time funds. Transitional kindergarten, I wasn't really sure whether to put this in the ongoing or the one-time money because the expansion of transitional kindergarten is going forward as planned and that funding is ongoing. But we put it in the one-time section because they added a new $300 million pre-K planning and implementation grant, which is, I don't know, it's just sort of striking because most of your districts were required to develop a plan for how you're going to spend your existing pre-K planning and implementation grant. And you had to adopt that by June 30th, today. So you probably just approved a plan on how you're going to spend $200 million or your share of $200 million. And the legislature has now appropriated an additional $300 million, where the language says you're going to use it consistent with that plan you just adopted. So it's like you may have adopted a plan planning on spending $200,000, and now you're getting an additional $300,000. So obviously it's good news, helps with the professional development, supplies, hiring staff you need to put these programs in place. But it is a pretty dramatic change at the last minute that frankly did not, again, have a lot of discussion. The other one that is formula driven. So far we've been talking about things that are, this money's going to come to your schools. You can start planning how to use it. This is the last that category. $225 million of one-time funds that will go to eligible schools, which are those that serve grades K through 3, where at least 95% of the students are unduplicated. So it's a pretty narrow subset of schools. You probably have a good sense right now if you have schools in your community like that or not. If you do, then you'll get the grant. The minimum grant is $450,000 per school. And it is to, again, we'll send the precise language in our written update, but it's to develop literacy programs, employ literacy coaches and reading specialists. And in fact, it requires that you hire at least one literacy coach or reading specialist, which I suspect for a lot of the schools will use up most of the money, but still it brings in a new resource in those schools to help with those. And then also to implement interventions. And obviously, again, recurring theme, you don't want to deal with these in isolation because you also have the funding for the learning recovery that we talked about to help with many of these same issues, and you have the money for instructional materials and professional development that was part of the that block grant. So, we talked about this before. I think it's important to begin with what it is you want to accomplish, what you want to achieve, and then organize the funding to support that, rather than to start in isolation with each funding program. The last thing we wanted to highlight, there are a couple of competitive grants in the budget. Not spending much time on those today because you know how a competitive grant works. The state will have to develop the RFP and then send it out. So you'll get more detail later this fall. There's really not a lot you can do about it right now, but the two major competitive grants are $500 million for career technical education to establish the Golden State Pathways program, and then $200 million that will be allocated to support expanding dual enrollment programs, middle college, early college, obviously primarily at the high school level. So again, here on this last slide, we have our email addresses. As I said, we just wanted to highlight the key points and sort of perspective how you approach it. As you can see, it has the sort of the flavor that you've gotten used to, a little bit of a lot of money, a lot of resources, dramatic student needs, and a real shortage of staff to address those needs. It makes sense in that situation to partner with others to help address both the academic and social emotional needs of students. We do a lot of work with a firm called Edmentum. So we invited Jason Mitchell from Edmentum to share a little bit about what they have to offer and how they can support you, and provide contact information so that if you think that would be useful to you, you can follow up and contact them. So Jason, I want to welcome you, and I look forward to your comments. Thank you.
For the warm welcome, Peter. Working together with you and in tandem with our district partners, we have helped address some of the biggest challenges that educators are facing today. And for those of you who are not familiar with Edmentum, we are educator first in everything that we do. Oh, I always forget to advance my slides there. We are educator first in everything we do. And we provide wraparound support for our districts and our teachers in service of developing the whole learner. That's everything from supporting their social and emotional well-being to making sure that we develop those critical executive functioning skills. We also provide your teachers with very precise assessments that pinpoint instruction for each student. And we can further support teachers with coaching and mentoring. Or we can even provide districts with options to leverage our teachers, and they're going to work hand in hand with yours. So today, the challenge that Peter spoke of is precisely what we want to help with. Districts are really struggling with that intersection of this enormous need for students to accelerate their learning back to grade level readiness. But coupling with the dynamic, it's just the fact that our teachers and our educators, they're just overwhelmed and they're exhausted. And that challenge is particularly pronounced in the area of extended learning opportunities. So many districts are looking for options to help them leverage these just incredible funding resources, and we can help in that. There's really three main ways that our partner districts who are planning to go after this grant, there's three main ways that they're looking at it. There's of course more than that, but these are the primary three. All right, make sure I get my things done right. All right, so first, we see many of our districts have the opportunity to leverage adaptive assessment tools that individualize learning pathways for students. And the goal is to give them the skills that match with that learner's exact level of readiness at that moment. The goal is also to support your district teachers with delivering that instruction and differentiation. So a lot of our partner districts, they use these tools in MTSS settings for students who are receiving Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 instruction. What's great about this for teachers is that they always have insight and control over the student's pathway. Yet they also have the option to let the adaptive instruction take the lead if they need it. The second option that many districts take is our foundational instructional services. So here, you have options for high impact live tutoring with virtual math and reading instruction. It's for students in K-12. Now, this FIS can augment an in-class instruction with these super powerful 90-minute sessions that are focused on key foundational math and reading skills. It really combines Edmentum's highly qualified virtual instructors with a proven personalized curriculum from our award-winning Exact Path program. So FIS is designed to support remediation, but you can also use it for acceleration or even enrichment. And all of this is in a synchronous virtual setting with super flexible scheduling. I need some more coffee after that. All right. So the third option that many districts are looking at is on-demand high impact tutoring. Now, many districts want to offer this one-to-one on-demand tutoring. Now, it's great for enhancing the learning experience for students and greatly expanding the options for their tailored instruction. But as Peter mentioned, some districts, they just don't have the human resources to deliver those services. And we can help there. Our highly qualified tutors, they provide that high impact tutoring, but they can also provide things like homework help or even coursework support. And their goal of those instructors is to foster this open environment where there's clear communication back and forth between the students and their teachers and the parents and families. And we all know the huge impact that individualized tutoring programs can have on student learning. So many of our districts, they utilize this program or they utilize all three that I've talked about so that they can maximize those learning opportunities for the students that are in their district and fully support their teachers. So if you'd like to learn more, I'm going to put my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me. My name is Jason Mitchell. You can email me at jason.mitchell@edmentum.com. You can call me 214-405-3234. That's jason.mitchell@edmentum.com. So thank you for all that you do on behalf of your students that you serve. It is our privilege to work alongside you in this really important endeavor and to take advantage of the opportunities that these grants give us. So Peter, I'm going to kick it back to you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jason. And as I said, we will provide a written update next week. So that'll be the week of July 4th, 5th, on that connects to language in the budget. So hope you all have a great summer, and we appreciate this opportunity. Thank you. Bye.